What's up, everyone? It's your boy Zach here with the top 5 lessons I learned in my first year of mentoring sales with Grant Cardone. Now, first off, let me go back a little bit. I didn't know who this guy was. I knew about a year or two ago now that I really wanted to train up on sales, and there's a few reasons for that I'll talk about in another video. And I just started looking around, and I was shopping around a lot of different mentors, interviewed a lot of different groups, individuals, and this guy came across my radar. Asked some of my buddies if they've heard of him. They're like, "You never heard of this Grant Cardone guy?" And now I'm shocked because I'm totally in the ecosystem that I had no idea who he was, and he's kind of a big name, got some controversy around him. All that aside, I want to share some of the things that I've learned, and I'll say this from the start. It has been absolutely invaluable, the skills I've learned. Invested quite a bit in them, in the mentorship, the programs, the trainings. I've gone to in-person events. I've worked with their 10X coaches. It's 100% worth it in my opinion, but let me get to these tips for you. All right, so the tip number 1, this wasn't the first lesson I learned, but it should be the first lesson, and that is that there is a sales process. There is a process to the sales. He defines it as the greeting, the fact-finding, the demo, the close, and then the follow-up, possibly. And I didn't really know this. And after a year of working on this, working on pitches, selling different products, selling different high-ticket services, I'm really, really grateful that I know this process and that I've refined this process over time. So that's my tip number 1. You might already know this, but it was news to me. And the more and more I go through these fundamentals of refining our sales process, oh man, the better it gets. And this sales process refers to not just on a call, but if you're cold calling, the overarching cycle of a client, all of these things, all right? Hugely important, and I love how they do it and walk you through it. All right, thing number 2, scripts are awesome. Now, I've done a lot of educational videos, so I'm used to seeing a script, working from a script, working from an outline and modifying it, but this was a lesson I learned from them. Super valuable. Scripts are valuable. I've got some scripts that I picked up from them, templates that I've kind of revised, made my own, but the more and more I use them, the more helpful it becomes, especially with the cold calls, and also when working through objections, which is the next one I'll talk about in a second. But number 2, scripts are awesome. All right. If you're sucking at it and you're making it up and you're always changing, the thing I often hear from them is, you can't make something better if you don't know the variables involved. And the less variables you're tweaking at a time, the more consistent you can be about changing them. All right, so tip number 3 is you gotta practice handling objections. Now look, if you've been in sales a long time, you already know this, but this was huge for me. Not just knowing how to handle objections, like for instance, let's pull this out. He's got this book, The Closer's Guide to Survival. It's got a bunch of different objection handlings, but you got to practice them. You got to be fluid with them. And I want to give a shout out to BK, one of the coaches over at Grant Cardone, because when you sign up for their mentorship, you get access to their script practice time, their objection practice time every week. And going in and practice there has been huge. I sucked at this at the beginning, man. It was like nerve-wracking for me. I didn't know what to say to all these things, but I'm glad I actually practiced. There's a big difference between reading about it and watching it and actually doing it. I also want to give a big shout out to my partner, Kate, because she let me take the lead and she pushed me into it and encouraged me through it, of going from sucking at handling objections to now getting really, really fluid with them. And the further you go down that objection path, the more you realize that it's not about closing it and handling their objections at the end. It's actually about the beginning of the process and making that smoother. So as I've gotten better and better at handling objections at the end, I've also gotten way, way better at way before they even get to us, what could we be shifting? Now, this could be its own video in itself, so I'm not going to go into all the lessons and all the objections, but one of them is agree with them, stay on point, don't give up so easily, and also you're not trying to bash them into winning, you're actually trying to solve a problem for them and yourself. All right, so that's number 3, practicing. Number 4, The average sale takes between 5 to 12 follow-ups, 5 to 12 contact points. And I'd actually say, man, maybe even more like 30 sometimes. So there have been times where we've got our leads in HubSpot and I'm following up again and again. I'm 18 days into this getting nothing back and staying super creative. This is another thing you hear. You don't just go, hey, I'm following up. I've gotten into sending emails, sending texts, sending video messages, writing letters, offering a ton of value, not just checking in on you, but understanding what they need and sending them free things. And sometimes it's been 18 attempts where I think, man, this is done. And then they reach out and go, oh my God, I'm so glad you emailed me today. I need help, right? So having that frame of reference in mind and understanding that 98% of the people who come to you at first might not be ready to buy then, these things have been huge for me to understand because it gets my mentality right. It gets your mentality right about what is good and what is bad. You know what I mean? So if you know, hey, 98% of people aren't going to buy from you right away, and it might take 30 times of creative follow-up to even get the interaction that you're looking for, then you know what amount of effort you need to put into it. All right. And that's number 5. Here's number 5. The amount of action it takes and the change in thinking to build a company this big, right? So to do the kind of sales you're doing, and this is going to get into a whole nother video of prospecting, but with the sales, contacting 100 people a day, following up with them 30 times creatively, not badgering them, like trying to provide value and not just the action it takes, but the mentality, the positivity, the connection, the not coming off as salesy, right? So the refining, the better and better I've got at this, the more and more natural, the more I get to just be myself. And for those of you who have met me on a personal level, I tend to be a guy who wants to help people. I tend to be pretty darn friendly. I tend to be do whatever I can to go above and beyond. So this is help. And the more your pipeline builds, the less pressure there is on winning just a few clients, right? So there's a lot more that I could go into, but I just wanted to share the first 5 because I didn't know who this guy was. And now that I'm in the ecosystem, I hear him criticized and all these other things. But the funny thing about when people criticize someone is they're not always the people that have actually studied them. So I wanted to give you some honest feedback from someone who has gone deep, read the books, gone to in-person events, done the mentorship, done the coaching, met the guy, and really tried to apply as much as I can. And I don't know how much you could really learn about this stuff or anything in just a few months, right? So I'm in well over a year now. So I'm not at the year marker. I'm well into year 2. I don't actually know how long it's been. Yeah, well over a year. So I think I could give a pretty honest review. This might not be everybody's take, but this is mine. So I hope you found that helpful, especially for those of you who are trying to grow and build your own business or are newer to the sales thing, trying to get into it, and maybe even you experienced one, heard some things. It's like, oh yeah, I got to bring that back into my game. So hope you found this helpful. If you did, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Again, I'm just trying to document my process of building my first $125 million company. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.